How's it going? It's Nathan Hawken here and welcome to the video. So you are potentially someone who is a high achiever. You're a coach who's just started your own business, or you've just started your own business in general. You're leading a team, running a company, whatever it may be. So you're someone who typically achieves more in 5 years than the majority of people would in, say, 20 years. So why does it feel like you've accomplished nothing or very little? So today we're going to talk about the hidden kind of psychological trap that high achievers tend to fall into, and it's that inability to acknowledge their own success. And it's not about imposter syndrome or false modesty or anything like that. This is about the very mindset that drives success, simultaneously prevents leaders from experiencing fulfillment in their achievements. If you don't know who I am Nathan Hawken. I've been a coach for over a decade now of working with high-performing leaders, business owners, Olympic athletes, banking executives, other coaches as well. And one of the things that I've noticed very often with my coaching conversations is there tends to be a lack of acknowledgement for the achievements that my clients actually do. Even though they're achieving so much more than the majority of people, but they still get stuck in this, I'm not good enough, or I'm not doing enough for me, for my business, whatever it may be. There is a mindset that the majority of my clients have, and the majority of people I speak to and leaders that I have conversations with out there. And it's that I always have to hit that next level. I always have to reach that next goal. I've always got to hit that next milestone. And this is really creating a problem with them because they're forever moving the finishing line for what they want and what they want to achieve. It's always like, when I get X, I'm going to feel successful or I'm going to feel accomplished. And this becomes an endless loop for them because when they get to the point where they've hit that next level or they've reached that next goal, it doesn't last very long, that level or that feeling of being a success or achieving something. They would be lucky if they get that achievement high for 24 hours, maybe 48 hours. You've probably experienced this yourself. It's like a dopamine crash, an achievement high that just dissipates very quickly. After you've been working and grinding, you get to a point where I've hit that goal, I've reached that milestone, I'm here. And then it just disappears very, very quickly, and it can leave a very empty feeling inside you. It's like, okay, right, well, what's next? What do I do now? Hence, the next goal, the next level, the next milestone, the next thing to be working on. Because what happens is your brain starts to treat achievements like they're checkboxes. Like there's a long list of checkboxes, and these are your victories, and you just check them off as you go. And you get very little satisfaction from just ticking that box, right? From just bang, tick it. Okay, now I've got to move to the next thing. Now I've got to move to the next thing. So it's like you're on this hedonic treadmill where your brain is adapting to a new baseline. You could say it's like a compare and despair type of situation where, I don't know, maybe your social media highlights versus the behind the scenes raw footage of reality that is actually happening. And so the highlights look great. It looks amazing. It's like, yes, I watched that, but that doesn't last long. That disappears pretty quick because it's just a highlight. But when you look behind the scenes and you look at the raw grinding that's happening behind the scenes to create that highlight or get that highlight, there's a big difference between the two. And so if you're always striving for that highlight, that goal, that's the thing that you're looking for, you forget about the reality of what's behind it. And this creates a despair within inside yourself because it's a comparison between what you actually see in the highlight and what's actually happening behind the camera or behind the scenes. Let's put it in a superhero metaphor, shall we? So you're Superman, right? Your superpower can also be your kryptonite, where those high standards that drive excellence, you're setting the benchmark for yourself. Living at a high standard, performing at a high standard, which drives the excellence, which is great, but it can also create those impossible benchmarks to hit. And when you don't hit those benchmarks for whatever reason, that's when you can start to feel like you're not achieving anything. That's when you feel like you're not moving towards anything because you've set the bar so high that to fall anything less than that bar, to fall short of it, it feels impossible. And in your mind, it can create those feelings of being a failure, feelings of being not enough, or feelings like you're just not making any progress at all. Because in your mind, you're telling yourself, if I don't hit this bar every single day with everything that I'm doing, nothing is ever good enough. By your own standards, nothing is ever good enough by your own standards, because these impossible benchmarks have been set by yourself, and to fall short of anything but that, it means that suddenly you're not good enough, or you're never going to achieve that high level all the time. So this can form a bit of a comparison trap inside yourself, where it's those external bookmarks or benchmarks versus the internal scorecards. And in your mind, it's like a success minimization disorder, where no matter what you do, no matter what you achieve, you're automatically minimizing what you've done. And if you look at a comparison about where you are now and where you were, say, a year or two ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, or even 10 years ago, I can guarantee that what you'll see is that you are at a much higher level compared to where you were then. But this gets forgotten. Because once you hit that, your operating capacity and how you're showing up on a day-to-day basis is up here compared to where it was back then. But we forget about that. We forget about how far we've come. We forget about what we've done to get to that level. And so when we see this as the new normal, that becomes the new standard, which you're setting the standards on for the future from there. So you're at this stage and you're like, you know what? What I do now is not good enough. Or you do something which isn't high excellence. You forget that where you've come from. You forget about what you've done already. And you forget that you're already operating at a very high level. So how could anything be like below that be bad? How can that have any bearing about what you're actually doing now, even if you fall short of the standards that you've set for yourself? There's a framework that you can follow which is very useful for these type of situations. When you feel like you're not reaching that level of success, you're not feeling fulfilled, you're not feeling like you actually accomplished anything, despite what level you're at. And one of the best ways to begin is start with a bit of an evidence collection about what you're actually doing. And the best way to do this is start documenting the impact that you're making, not just the outcomes. I mean, we can constantly track KPIs, we can constantly track financials. It becomes more important to track the transformation stories that you hear from your team, from your clients, not just the figures, the KPIs that they're generating. If you're tracking the transformation stories, you've got something to look back on and be like, wow, this person has actually grown. It's been a direct result of me. If you're a coach working with a client and you're tracking the number of times a client has a breakthrough with you, that's incredible. And then you have to step back and think, wow, I had a huge part in the breakthrough that this person had. This person go and live a happier life and being more fulfilled in what they're doing. And I contributed to that. If it's a team member, imagine tracking the transformation that you see in your team as a result of the leadership that you're providing. What type of impact would that have on yourself? What about tracking the number of times you've solved a problem for someone? Whether it be a family member, a client, a team member. Imagine tracking every time someone had a problem and they came to you to help solve that problem, and you assisted in not just solving the problem, but inspired your team as a result. Imagine tracking that. Imagine the difference that would make for you, rather than just following the numbers and the KPIs. And on a personal note, you can start to journal this for yourself. Like keep a side book somewhere, have a document on your computer that you can just tap into anytime. And this is your personal notes to yourself where, I don't know, call it the difference made journal, where you're jotting down the time that you made a difference in someone's work, in someone's life. If you kept a record of that you could refer to as much as you like, what type of impact do you think that would have on the expectation you have for yourself and the difference that you're making already? I mentioned it a minute ago, comparing like where you've come from compared to where you are now. And so one of the best things you could do is create a perspective anchoring to your past self, where you compare your past self not to others' highlights, but to where you are now and what you've achieved in that time. Sit down and think about, all right, 1 year ago, this is where I was. This is what I was doing. And in that time, this is what's happened. And this is where I am now. You take time to actually write that down. Think about that. Notice what you've actually accomplished. Notice what you've done until that time. Notice the growth that you've gone through up until where you are now. Write all that down. Think about the skills that you've mastered. Think about the fears that you've conquered. Think about the growth edges which have expanded for yourself. How you're thinking differently. But the key to this is not thinking about where I should be. Shoulds are one of the worst things you can have because it's a comparison, or it's like someone else's point of view which you've put upon yourself. So we're not thinking about this. We're not doing this exercise and thinking about, well, I should be here, but I'm not. Well, I was here, but here I am now, but I should be over here. We're putting that aside. It's not about the shoulds. This is an exercise for you to understand how far you've actually come in what you're doing. How far you've grown in the last 12 months, in the last 2 years. However you want to do the exercise. But this is not about where you should be. This is about how far you've actually come. When you do an exercise like this, it's very valuable to top it off with an integration or meaning integration, where you connect your achievements to your values and your legacy. Now, with my coaching, I'm very big on helping people find their legacy or start building their legacy now and really making an impact in this world. But it's important to link all of your wins, your big wins, your small wins, and everything in between, to link your wins to your deeper why and your core values. A really good question to ask yourself is, what does this success make possible for others? What does this success that I've created make possible for others? That is a powerful question. That is a very powerful question. And when you find the answer to that question, you've got a very valuable resource to tap into anytime you feel like you're not doing enough, you're not achieving enough, you're not providing enough, whatever it is. But when you get that answer, that's going to be a very valuable resource for you. And it's important to think about that this is not the final destination. What you're working towards is not the final destination, or where you are now is not the final destination. These are the stepping stones to a much bigger impact and an even bigger legacy. And it's important to recognize these stepping stones as you're going over them, as you're stepping across to the next one, while still working towards the big goal that you want to work towards. Let's talk about a bit of a strategic reframe for you. So if you're at that stage where you are accomplishing, right, but you don't feel accomplished, you're not feeling successful, it doesn't matter how much you're doing, and you're really setting that high bar and standard for yourself, it's important to get a bit of a reframe of where you are now. I know how that feels. I feel that quite a lot in what I do. Like, no matter if it's at home, being a dad, a husband, doesn't matter what I do, it never feels like enough. In my work, creating videos, working with clients, I get that feeling a lot. Like, I feel like, man, was that enough? Did I do enough? Am I doing enough? I should be doing more. And it becomes a bit of a baseline at times. So I have to take a step back and reframe my situation, because we need to see things from a different way. You need to see your life from a different way. You need to see what you've done in a different light. Because if that feeling of not feeling accomplished or not feeling successful, not feeling I'm doing enough is prominent, we need to flip it. You need to look at, okay, how can I see this in a better way? What's a better way to be understanding what I'm doing or thinking about what I'm doing that's actually going to make me feel like I'm achieving and feel like I'm doing and I'm being all that I can be? A good reframe for when you're feeling like that is that when you acknowledge your wins, it's not a celebration, right? It's not just like, yeah, you celebrate your wins, that typical cliche. It's not about celebration. Think of it like it's calibration. Recognition to yourself is the fuel that's going to get you to the finish line. It's the thing that's going to drive you forward. It's not doing something that we're told we have to do, like celebrate the wins, which we get so much of. We're doing this as an exercise to fuel what's coming next. To look at what you've done so far, see how far you've come. Like, okay, great. This is what I've done so far, and I do feel good about it. What do I need to do now to get to that next goal, to get to that next level, to hit that next milestone? Because we're always going to be working towards it, right? I don't want to dismiss the fact that we are working towards another goal and we've got the next thing to work on. There's nothing wrong with that. What I'm saying is we understand what we've done up until this point, recognize how amazing it is, but it's not just about the celebration. It's about calibrating so we can pivot the way we need to get to where we want to go next. Remember that sustainable high performance requires acknowledging the progress. Another reframe to think about is how fulfillment fuels sustainable high performance. When you're constantly thinking about not doing enough, you're not achieving enough, or you're not feeling that level of fulfillment, this takes a lot of energy away from you. This is a lot of negative energy that you're bringing into yourself, and you're dismissing a lot of what you've done already. You're thinking negatively about yourself, doesn't matter how much you achieve. So if you flip that and reframe it and you think, okay, this is how I'm feeling now. My fulfillment fuels high performance. if you're not feeling fulfilled, you start to get burnt out because all this extra energy is going towards something that's not going to serve you. So if you want to avoid that burnout, think about the fuel that's going to sustain your high performance is focusing on what you want and acknowledging what you're doing now. Because there is a difference between satisfactory and complacency, where satisfaction equals energy for the next level. Satisfaction is energy to take into your next goal, your next milestone, your next level. Whereas complacency is stopping the growth engine. You're putting a halt on the growth and your potential when you start to get complacent due to you not being able to achieve these high standards that you're setting for yourself. Then to wrap up this video, I'm going to issue you a challenge, and the challenge is for you to name 3 things that you've accomplished just in this last month that you dismiss as not being enough, or you're just doing your job, or it's not a high enough standards. We're putting all those aside. What are 3 things that you've accomplished in the last month? Write them down, acknowledge them, calibrate on them, and move forward. And then with that, I want to thank you for watching the video. I appreciate you watching to the end. If you'd like to support my channel more, please feel free to subscribe, hit the notification, and also like the video. It helps me reach more people so I can get this message out to more people and serve people at a much higher level. Thank you so much. I wish you all the best.